Hey everyone, welcome back to some new malicious compliance stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called "He got exactly what he thought he would get." This happened about 15 years ago. My dad worked for a company that fixed and rented heavy equipment. His boss, the CEO of the company, whom he reported to directly, was a middle-aged Italian guy whose grasp of English was 10 years at best. He understood what people were saying, but had trouble communicating his own intentions back clearly. On the other hand, my dad had zero grasp of Italian, but spoke perfect English. However, he was a solid mechanic who would go on to make the machine bay of this company great. Things got done. And even though he didn't always understand what the boss wanted him to do, he just focused on the reason he was hired. Manage the repair bay, hire new mechanics, train new hires, and off-site encore repairs. Well, the boss guy gets it in his head that my dad is going to replace him as the leader of the company. He's much better liked, speaks perfect English in an English-speaking country, and has basically all the department heads coming to him for help, even though he's technically only in charge of the repair bay. And so he calls my dad in, shoos him out, and manages to communicate that he's being fired for poor work performance. And my dad just smiles, shakes the guy's hands and leaves. And thanks to his less than firm grasp on both the English language and business law, the boss guy just sends him on his way with his last paycheck and nothing else. So my dad started his own business in the heavy equipment mechanic market. And after telling all his old work buddies about the situation, suddenly got a bunch of new hires. His old workplace suddenly had a lot of vacancies that the boss had no idea how to fill, because the guy he had hired to do that had just been fired. He went under about 6 months later. Sometimes my dad drives past where the old shop was, on his way to a call. When he does, he just laughs and laughs. The next story is called "You Want Me Gone?" My dad was a first-generation Asian immigrant with a PhD who had been working as a senior engineer for a Shell refinery for almost 2 decades. Dad didn't socialize much with his other co-workers, partially because he had a 2-hour round-trip commute, and partially because he just didn't share many of the same cultural touchstones as them, being an immigrant. Still, he was highly respected by his co-workers because he was really good at his job. Being the stereotypical Asian math whiz, he even came up with his own extremely complicated resource allocation algorithm that generated significant efficiency improvements for their refinery. This was a major multi-billion-dollar refinery, so he was now literally saving the refinery millions every year. If he was a more entrepreneurial sort, he probably would have negotiated and gotten either lifetime royalties or promoted into management track. But he was happy that his algorithm was making his work much easier for him. He was at the company for 19 years. Over the course of these 19 years, most of his managers either retired or were promoted into senior management outside his orbit. But each time they tell the new replacement, "Hey, don't mess with this guy, he's a good dude and saves the company a ton of money." Dad didn't play the schmoozing game, so he stayed as a senior engineer and never made it into management track, but he was alright with that. Unfortunately, during the 19th year, there was a 3-month gap between the last manager leaving and the new manager arriving. This time the message wasn't conveyed. The new manager was, for lack of a better term, a diversity hire. Unlike the previous supervisors my dad had, she was in her early to mid-20s, fresh out of college with just a bachelor's in management and zero engineering background. She was now supposed to manage a team of mostly PhDs with decades of experience in the field. To be fair, that probably wasn't easy for her either. She had the typical liberal arts college attitude of always knowing better than you. And there was immediate friction between her and my dad. She probably just wanted to demonstrate her authority being new, and my dad seemed like an easy target, being the old guy in the department who never hanged out with anyone. It all came to a head one day when she very publicly called him out on some calculations she claimed he got wrong, and offered rather smugly to teach him the math behind it. Really bad idea. Asians in particular tend to care a great deal about face and respect, especially for your elders. Here was this 20-something business management bachelor's with no experience trying to publicly embarrass him, an Asian man in his 60s, and say that she was going to teach him math. My dad quite brusquely demonstrated that his calculations were in fact correct, and then started doing something I really wouldn't recommend. He seized every opportunity to publicly call her out and embarrass her when she got her stuff wrong, which was quite often. Things got bad, really bad. The new manager wasn't going to take this lying down, so every week she tried to seize any excuse to write my dad up for purported mistakes or infractions. This went on for a full year. He had gotten an outstanding rating on every annual report since 1995. The new manager tried to give him a not adequate rating on the 2014 one and basically threatened to fire him, 1 year short of his 20-year retirement with pension, unless he wrote a self-critique and came up with a self-improvement plan. That was the absolute last straw. He wasn't going to put up with this. So he said screw it and gave HR his 1 month notice. You want me gone? I'm gone. Screw you and your pension. The first day, all was quiet. The next day, all hell broke loose. While none of us were there, this is how we imagined things went down. He has decided to quit instead of improving his performance. Oh, okay, wait, so who is going to run the algorithm? Which algorithm? Oh no, oh no, oh no. Senior management basically realized that no one besides him even knew how it worked, much less would be able to maintain or operate it. He had created it all from scratch. Once that was gone, the algorithm would be gone with him, along with the millions in efficiency savings each year. The head of HR and a VP level executive immediately scheduled a conference with him and the new supervisor, and the company caved all the way. Dad no longer had to report to the new manager. His annual report was changed to outstanding and he now reported directly to the vice president. His job also changed. His only responsibility for the next year, until his retirement date, was to spend a few months training his replacement on the usage and maintenance of the algorithm. Once his replacement was fully trained, he had no other responsibilities. He could just sit at home and collect his paycheck until his retirement date came. I'd love to say that the new hire was punished for that, but that probably wasn't the case. The last story is called Napoleon. This happened to my dad in the late 90s. We were living in the Detroit metro area. Dad used to drive for a popular shuttle bus company based in Wayne County International Airport. A VIP group from Phoenix was assigned to him. The VIP package was all-inclusive. Any place, any detour that the group wants until they reach the final destination specified in the job order. The company got paid by the mile, and that pay structure was base salary plus overtime. He made great money from tips alone, as he was very professional, personable and a neat freak. His rig was always spotless. So he picks up the VIP group, a party of 9. Everyone was very friendly and chatty. Pleasantries all around as he was loading up everyone's luggage except for the group leader. Let's call him Napoleon, a short man with a Napoleon complex. He looked mad for no apparent reason. One girl in the group, let's call her Eva, even pulled Dad aside to apologize in advance because she knew Napoleon would be rude and abrasive. This is how he operates, she said. Once everyone is seated, Dad makes the safety announcements, asked everyone to buckle up, asked everyone to make sure their US passports can be easily accessed. He asks if the group wants a quick pit stop for food before heading to their final destination, which was the hotel located just across the US-Canada border in Windsor, Ontario. Dad was used to people flying to Detroit, then crossing the border to go to Windsor, as this was much more economical, especially for larger groups. Before Dad could finish talking, Napoleon cuts him off. I'm in charge of this group and I'll speak for everyone. No detours, no scenic routes, strictly point A to point B. We'll need to stop every hour or so because Eve here will need to use the ladies' room due to her bladder issues. I want you to fill up your gas tank while she's at it, because I don't want any other unnecessary stops. Needless to say, Eve was humiliated. What can she do? Napoleon is a good old distant uncle. Dad wanted to interject that the Detroit-Windsor tunnel was less than 30 minutes away and border traffic was very light. But Napoleon inflicts his voice, talking over my dad. He says via northbound I-275, westbound I-96, northbound Route 23 and then northbound I-75 the rest of the way. Dad was going to talk some sense into Napoleon, but again was cut off, again voice inflected, period. Dad does the addendum on the trip ticket, has Napoleon sign and date the document. His maliciously compliant road trip has commenced. Once the shuttle had gotten on the interstate, Dad turns on the cockpit voice recorder to document everything. Then he radios the office to inform the dispatcher on duty of the addendum, making sure he spoke slowly, clearly and loud enough for Napoleon to hear everything. He then turns to Napoleon, informing him that they'll be out of radio range soon and the addendum will be final and binding at that point. Napoleon says with an irate tone, "Everything that I have instructed you to do has been meticulously planned and premeditated. I expect you to execute it without prejudice." Dad politely nods his head in affirmation. Instead of going from point A to point B, a mere half-hour commute, they are now en route to making a gigantic 700-mile 10-hour U-turn. Napoleon didn't realize that Windsor, Ontario is south of Detroit. On their first pit stop at Osunanko in Flint, Eva, after visiting the ladies' room, approached my dad as he was pumping gas. Sorry for Napoleon's demeanor, we all hate him, but he's the boss. My dad, feeling a little bit of guilt, tells Eva that they are in the early stages of a gigantic U-turn. Eva's eyes bulged in disbelief. After gathering herself, she instructs Dad to head back south and take the fastest route to their hotel and not inform Napoleon of the change. My dad was happy to do it, but the company will still be charged for the time and distance for their giant U-turn per the addendum. Eva said to not worry about that, as she will inform their office of Napoleon's blunder once they are settled at their hotel. Eva was now a happy and willing accomplice. Dad sensed that Eva had long been waiting for an opportunity like this to put Napoleon in his proper place. The rest of the commute was uneventful. Napoleon was oblivious to the direction that the shuttle bus was headed at this point, as he was busy reading magazines. At the hotel drop-off, Eva asks Dad for the office number. Dad promptly gives her his business card. 4 days later, Dad picks up the same group. Eva had phoned the office requesting the same driver for the return leg. This time they were a party of 8. Napoleon had been instructed to fly back the day after their arrival, after Eva was reassigned to be their team's interim lead. Eva handed Dad a $400 tip inside a white envelope. Each remaining team member chipped in $50 each. They shook Dad's hand. Apparently, Eva filled everyone in on what Napoleon had erroneously planned. Eva explained with a wry smile on the way to Detroit that Dad's company will be paid in full per the trip addendum. Napoleon wasn't canned, but he became the office idiot. Was never again given the task of leading a team. Eva is now my realtor. She helped me and my husband find our dream home here in Glendale. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe, bye bye.